what would be the motivation for you as an editor to let a scene breathe versus
Mhm.
keeping it tight and lean?
I actually did a film called Little Men, which was
You've got a
directed
big
by.
smile on your face. You're thinking about something.
I'm thinking about this scene. Yeah, because I love this question because it really, I feel like this is something I've played with a lot as an editor. And so I did this movie called Little Men that was directed by Ira Sachs, and there was a scene in it where it was about two boys, and they went to an acting class, and there was a scene between one of the kids and the acting teacher in which they were doing a Meisner exercise. So they were saying the same words back and forth to each other. And there was a take in there where they were doing this exercise and it just went on and it's like, I don't know, a 2 minute take. And I was like, this is magic. We're just going to play this whole thing of them doing this. And the thing that happened with it is that it starts building and building, and you're like, oh my God, this is great. And then there's this piece in the middle where you're like, what? Why am I still here? What? It almost makes you a little self-conscious. You're like, why am I still watching this? And then it gets amazing again. And the thing I learned on that film is that you don't get amazing without that middle section of like, why am I still here? Like you have to wait it out.
Welcome to the Filmmaker Mixer podcast, the podcast by filmmakers for filmmakers. Filmmaker Mixer is a creative hub where aspiring and established filmmakers come together to share experiences, insights, strategies, and inspiration.
Hello, everybody. This is the Filmmaker Mixer podcast, and today we are chatting with editor Mollie Goldstein. Mollie had two films at Sundance 2026 this year, In the Blink of an Eye and Hot Water. So, Mollie, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, you just got back from Sundance, right?
I did. I got back on Tuesday and went right back to dailies on the film I'm working on, and it has been an absolute whirlwind.
Yeah, I'll
Uh,
bet. That's cool. So, were you out there for the whole festival or just for the screenings or?
I was there from Friday to Monday,
Yeah,
so
that's
hot water.
enough. That's
It,
enough.
it is a grueling. I mean, it's wonderful, it's magical, and at the same time, it's incredibly hard. It's frustrating. You can't get tickets. You can't get anywhere. Sundance is a unique challenge.
Yeah. And it's kind of cool that you were there the last year they were in Park City.
In Park City, yeah, it's between it being the last year in Park City and the first Sundance since Robert Redford died. It really had a like end of an era kind of feeling, and
Wow.
I'm excited for new possibilities. I think Boulder will be a great host, but there's a lot, there was a lot that's ending, and also a lot to be thankful for. Like I've edited at the Sundance Directors Lab a couple of times. So I met Robert Redford. I've been sort of on the fringes of the Sundance Institute before, and it really is a special place. Like
Sure.
it's so easy to be cynical. There is so much Hollywood and money and drama and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, they do an incredible job fostering independent film and to be out there, see people lining up around the block to go see a movie that was made for $1 million that they've never heard of is pretty inspiring.
Sure, sure, sure. Well, I'm curious about a couple of things in the editing process but before we talk
Yes.
about that, tell us about you. How did you get involved in editing and storytelling? What's your background?
Yeah, so I grew up loving movies. My mom was big on the like Hollywood era of the 40s and 50s. So I love screwball comedies, that kind of thing. But I just always loved going to the movies, and I had a high school teacher named Marianne Satter who kind of opened the door to me that these are things made by people. There's actually people in there who have to go create this stuff. And I went to college knowing that I wanted to get involved in film, but not really knowing how. I made a couple of short films, and it just became very clear to me that I don't really know what to do with a blank page. So writing is really a struggle for me. And production is too chaotic. Like it's too cold, it's too hot, you're lost, you're confused, it's loud. I can't be creative. I just go into like survival mode. But the edit room was the fun part. And it was where I felt like I really had my blocks and now I get to play with them. And that I like a duck to water. I was just like, this is great. This is where I belong. And after college, I moved to New York and slept on a friend's couch and took a class at a place called the Edit Center, where the students worked on real movies.
Oh,
So
wow.
Yeah, it was sort of like barbershop school, you know, you practiced on the real thing. And the film got a free rough cut, and the students got to work on a real project. And I remember it was a 6 week course, and I remember the first week I was there, the teacher was demoing how to create a match on action, and I got goosebumps, and I was like, I think this is for me.
It is kind of magical when you're doing a scene and you drop in that great piece of music or you drop in, a sound effect or you do that cut that makes you go, wow, this scene is way more powerful now. Or you let that cut linger on a close up and you're just waiting, milking that actor's emotion. It's a magical process for sure.
Yeah, it's where the film really becomes what it is, you know, and it's the process. I was actually just talking about to an editor friend, Meg Rediker, who's like incredible. She's got 30 Rock, she's got incredible stuff. And we were talking about how on a feature, the biggest question is tone. You know, the biggest question you have to solve is identity, and the edit process is really the sort of final revision of the script. It's where you figure out, all right, this story with these actors on these days, what does this feel like? What is the essence of this? How do we make that happen? And that comes about in the edit.
So I've got a question. How would
Mhm.
you describe tone in the edit? So a cinematographer is going to have his color palette, production
Yeah.
designer is going to have, soft colors, hard colors, different things, whatever props they're using in the edit. How would you describe tone? Is it pacing? How would you describe
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, it's pacing, it's emphasis, you know, like in the edit, you can really do a lot to create point of view. Like whose scene is this? Whose story is this? Whose reaction are we cutting to? You know, what are we taking out? What are we leaving in? How are we, what music are we adding? That's a big part of it. You know, I have a film that's coming out this week called Untitled Home Invasion Romance, which was,
It's a
yes,
great title.
the real
That's a
title.
great title.
Yeah. I anyway, it's Jason Biggs' first movie that he directed. He directed and starred, and figuring out that movie, it was very much a hybrid script. It was part thriller, part comedy, and a big part of the process was us figuring out, is this a comedy or which side are we leaning to? And we had a feedback screening with friends and family, and people were dying to laugh. And I was like, all right, this is a comedy. This movie works the best when we push towards the humor. And like, it will have tension. I mean, if we did our jobs, you know, we want the tension, you want the emotion, but at the end of the day, this is a comedy, and that became sort of our guiding light.
So is that a matter of cutting for comedy, obviously, but also do the actors give different takes than you did you go back and change out scenes and say, hey, you know what? We dropped this take where there was a funny moment. We made it a little more serious, but now we're going to swap it out. Do you do things like that?
Yeah, it's about pushing the funnier takes, changing the reaction shots, you know, changing the music, just kind of making it cueing the audience to be like, it's okay, it's not serious.
Right, right.
You know, and these things sound so abstract, but it's like tiny decision after tiny decision that adds up to this. And it's pacing, it's reaction shots, it's timing of interactions, it's what you take out versus what you leave in, you know, it's all of those things.
Well, speaking of those things, I'm curious, have you ever had a moment, because this happens all the time, and I don't think people realize this, where the scene, once you start editing, becomes a different kind of scene. Like on paper, it was meant to be one thing. And then you and the director discover, hey, if we recut this, this could become a new thing.
Mhm,
And can
absolutely.
you describe that process?
Yeah, I'm trying to, in the blink of an eye, which is out on Hulu at the end of the month. It's very sort of arty, esoteric movie. Like it's three interlocking stories, one in 45,000 BC with Neanderthals, one in the present, and one 300 years in the future on a spaceship. And it's a very sort of loose film about what it means to be human, about sort of commonalities across time. And so we spent so much time editing it and so much time looking for it. And there were a number of scenes in the present, which mostly is a two-hander between Rashida Jones and Daveed Diggs, who are two funny, very funny actors in a very sort of serious storyline. And we cut the scenes on their face, and it was dark. And then I sort of went
You mean
back.
just like the tone was too dark, like the emotion?
Yeah, like her mother, Rashida plays a doctoral candidate who has to leave her post at the university because her mother has cancer. So like a barrel of laughs, right? And we really needed to pull the lightness out of the film into, pull it out of these scenes and find the takes where David was amused by her character or where they were joking together and really just pull the lightness up, take out some of the tension or the crankiness or whatever it was. And that is it's like it's like ombre, like any scene can be arranged. Like the scene is always going to be purple. Like I in the edit, I cannot change a scene from purple to green, but I can make it dark purple or I can make it light purple. And so that was what we were doing, was just looking for the takes, looking for the beats, the looks, the little exchanges that add the lightness and add the humor, and you can really skew a scene one way or the other when you add up all of those small choices.
Interesting. Well, speaking of the way into a project, you had, as we said, two different films at
Mhm.
Sundance. The Blink of an Eye is obviously very much about perception and timing, and like you said, these three, these three different stories. And then your other film, Hot Water, that was like because I haven't seen either one, but that was a road movie, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
so it's a story about a mom and a son on the road, and they actually shot it on the road. So
Oh, how
the
cool.
characters are driving from Indiana to California, and the film crew drove from Indiana to California. So all the B-roll, everything out the window, the smell, the dirt, the crankiness, the jokes, the punchiness, it was all real.
Well, when you have two different projects like that, is your way into discovering what the tone is of the film different, or do you have the same process and it just turns into a different thing? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I think the process is similar in that being an editor is really about listening to the footage. But they were very different projects in that Blink it was much more of a conventional workflow. Like I got the script through my agent and I met with the director and I started cutting when they were shooting. And so I was really like on that ride from the beginning. And Hot Water, the director had been working on it himself for a while, Ramsey Bashour, and he had been trying to cut the film and he wrote it, he directed it, and then this happens with directors, is they try to edit their own stuff and they've just been living with this material for so long that they can't get any distance.
Right.
So when they reached out to me, there was about a 40-minute cut of the first, I don't know, 30 or so scenes in the film. So I was able to watch the rough cut before I read the script. So I watched the cut, which really gave me a sense of what the performances were and what the feeling of the film was. And then I read the script and was able to sort of look at those two things together and really go to them and be like, I think I know what this movie is, and I think I know how to make it good. Um, and obviously it was a collaboration. I'm certainly not taking credit. That is Ramsey's movie. That is him on screen. But that was one where watching that cut, I was like, I think I know what this movie needs. Like I think I know how to bring out the joy and the lightness and the truth here.
Well, that makes sense. It's kind of like temp tracks. I'm going to use that as a
Yeah.
comparison. A lot of editors and directors use temp tracks because you're trying to find the rhythm of the scene that you know you're going to have music in. But
Yep.
then when you go to the composer,
Yes.
you want to say, I mean, I know composers who like to listen to the temp tracks, and I know composers who say, that was good for your edit. I don't want to hear any of that.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
you have to let the editor create I'm sorry, the composer create their own thing. The same is true of an editor.
Yep.
There are filmmakers because, a lot of us have Adobe and
Mhm.
DaVinci and, Avids and so forth. And so there is a lot of overlap in what a filmmaker will do. They'll start their own edit, but at some point, you as an editor have to say, here's what I bring to the table. And
Mhm.
so when you're doing that, with a director, what's the process for the back and forth? What's the dialogue? What are you trying to explain? Or do you just show them a cut? Or what's that conversation like?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean the conversation. up front, so the first conversation we have is really off the script, or in the case of Hot Water, the script and that rough cut. But I think the first question is just, do we see the same movie when we look at this material? Do the same things come out to us? Does this feel like the same story to both of us? Are we interested in the same aspects of this? And then when you're in the cutting room, I'm a big believer in a like, let's try it kind of attitude, and someone has an idea, and half the time I think it's great and it does work. Half the time I think it's great and it doesn't work, And the flip side too, like half of the time someone gives me a note and I'm like, ugh, I don't want to do that. And then you do it and you're like, actually, that was very smart. So what I try to do in terms of working with the director is just create a really safe space where we can try things, we can be wrong, we can have bad ideas, and that messiness of that process is what makes things better. So it's really just, and I want them to feel safe and I want to feel safe,
Right.
I want to be able to show them things that suck and have them be like, not this time, but like I know that you're still a good editor,
Well, when you're in the kitchen, you want to be covered with flour and have, water spilling here and soup spilling there. You
Exactly.
want to get messy. No, I get it. I get it.
Sometimes the sugar's gonna spill.
Exactly. Well, let's pivot over to something else. So you picked up a big award at Sundance as an editor, correct? Or
Yes, I am so like just so moved. I got the Sundance Adobe Mentorship Award, which is an award they give every year to one fiction and one nonfiction editor to recognize people who are doing a lot to help mentor and bring new people into the field. And it's something very close to my heart because I really have look, it's been 25 years, but I still remember how much I didn't know and how much I wanted to know and how many questions I had and how I just needed someone to open the door and be like, this is how it all works. So I only got my start because my mentor, Alan Oxman, took me under his wing and really helped me figure out how this all works. So to be recognized for that by an institution like Sundance and supported by a company like Adobe, it's pretty extraordinary for them to come forward and be like, hey, this is important. We're going to recognize it. We're going to put our money where our mouth is. So it was really meaningful.
and is this based on your work as a mentor? It's not connected to the film, I'm assuming, or is it both?
No,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
is so the award is based on peer nominations. So they
Gotcha.
send out a call for nominations and three people I know wrote letters saying why they thought I should win the award. And it really came out of my work with the ACE internship program. So
And yeah,
ACE
what is that? Yeah.
Yeah, ACE is American Cinema Editors. Sometimes you see, if you see in the credits, you'll see somebody credited and then their name says comma ACE. It's that. And they have an internship program that they've been running for about almost 30 years in LA that I sort of spearheaded the launch in New York 2 years ago. And it has two parts. One is a week-long lecture series that's open to all applicants. So everybody who applies gets to be a part of this. It's usually about 100 people. And then there's a 4-week paid internship program for the two selected interns, and they shadow in three different cutting rooms and then spend a week touring a variety of post facilities. So we really try to welcome people in to make that lecture series a really meaningful and educational experience. We have a week of programming on Zoom, two in-person events, and the idea is, this is what a PA does. This is what dailies are like. This is what color correction means. All of these things that maybe you've caught wind of or you've done in a student film or you've heard exists, but we really try to explain it all and also make connections between the interns themselves so that they can build a community and kind of support each other, and then bring in a lot of more experienced editors and give people to exposure to experienced people in the field in terms of knowledge and then also in terms of the networking aspect.
So they have a program in LA and a program in New York now? Okay,
Yes,
interesting.
yes. And there's one in London too.
Oh, wow.
At the same time we launched the New York program, they launched one in London as well.
Interesting. So for young filmmakers who might be listening who are thinking about getting into editing and these kinds of things, how would they find out more about these programs?
Yeah, so there's a rundown of the internship on americancinemaeditors.org. And the applications are open in June. The application period is June and July. And then we do the selections in August, and the program runs in the fall. So it's for anyone at the beginning of their career. If you're in the Editors Guild, or if have more than 3 credits on a sort of like a studio or network project, then you're disqualified. But other than that, we're just looking for people who love editing and are looking for a way to get started.
That's cool. That's really cool. Well, I want to flip back over to the creative process of editing, and I've got another question for you. What would be the motivation for you as an editor to let a scene breathe versus
Hmm.
keeping it tight and lean?
Hmm.
And, the obvious question would, I mean, the obvious answer would be, an action movie is going to have a different kind of pacing than a drama. But
Hmm.
sometimes there are moments in a film where you just need to let it breathe till it almost hurts a little bit, let the audience get a little uncomfortable. So what would motivate you to make either of those decisions?
Yeah. I actually did a film called Little Men, which was
You've got a
directed
big
by.
smile on your face. You're thinking about something.
I'm thinking about this scene. Yeah, because I love this question because it really, I feel like this is something I've played with a lot as an editor. And so I did this movie called Little Men that was directed by Ira Sachs, and there was a scene in it where it was about two boys, and they went to an acting class, and there was a scene between one of the kids and the acting teacher in which they were doing a Meisner exercise. So they were saying the same words back and forth to each other. And there was a take in there where they were doing this exercise, and it just went on, and it's like, I don't know, a 2 minute take. And I was like, this is magic. We're just going to play this whole thing of them doing this. And the thing that happened with it is that it starts building and building, and you're like, oh my God, this is great. And then there's this piece in the middle where you're like, what? Why am I still here? What? It almost gets you a little self-conscious. You're like, why am I still watching this? And then it gets amazing again. And the thing I learned on that film is that you don't get amazing without that middle section of like, why am I still here? Like you have to wait it out. You have to feel the discomfort so that you can get yourself back into it.
Right.
And we tried jump cutting. We tried taking the middle part out, and it didn't work. It wasn't as good. And people loved, I mean, I remember going to test screenings because, the producer, everyone kept being like, you got to cut it down, you got to cut it down. So I would be in a friends and family screening looking around, see huge grins on people's faces. And some of it's the audacity. Most of it is the charm of this young actor and his acting teacher. And it only worked when you held it too long.
Interesting. I don't know if this is the right terminology or not, but I know in screenwriting, writers struggle to make sure the scene is earned. And
Yes.
it almost sounds like that's what you're saying about the edit. You want to make sure as you're editing that scene that the tension or the comedy or whatever you're going for isn't just cut and it's there, but it's earned in the scene. Does that make sense?
And I think that's a great way to put it. And in general, I believe that you have to earn those moments. Like I generally try to keep my edits fairly brisk so that when you do slow down and really want to sit in the emotion of something, the audience trusts you. And it's not just a universally slow movie. It's you're like, oh, we're really in this, and it feels different, and I'm paying attention because the movie's telling me this is special, this is different.
Right.
I think, cut, 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 breathe is a really powerful way to emphasize things and to cue an audience that this is that they can settle in and they can feel something.
Right, right. Makes sense. I'm curious about something else, and I haven't brought up this example in a while. I brought this up to other editors, so I'm going to bring it up to you.
Great.
One of my favorite films is Breaking Away from 80, 81, and the climax of that movie, the big final race. Are you familiar with the film?
I
Uh,
haven't seen it.
oh, you've got to watch this film. I mean,
I know.
it's
It's
so
it's one of those classics where I'm like, how have I not? Anyway.
yeah, yeah. So the big finale race at the University of Indiana, I think it is. They do the national anthem, they play the school song or whatever. The race starts. And it's the climax of the movie, and there is no music. It's all bicycles and breathing and just that as they're going. And it works brilliantly.
Mhm.
And then it's not until the very end, that the music comes in. of the scene. So I guess my question for you is, what would motivate you in terms of the edit when it comes to sound, not picture, but when do you envision music or not music, or when do you say this should have very little sound? And I know a sound designer is going to come in later,
Yep.
but you're building that tone. What would
Yeah.
motivate you to um, use sound in a particular way in a film?
I always edit I always do my first cuts with no music, because
Really, no music at all.
I don't want the music to trick me into thinking something's working.
Oh,
Music is
that's
so
smart. I like that.
powerful
Yeah.
that I always start with no music, but I always feel in my head, I'm like, because to me, music is emotion. Music is pure feeling. And so I always know this is where this feeling starts and this is where this feeling ends. And what I want is a piece of music that says, I'm sad, and I start being sad here and then I end here. Or I
Right.
want a piece of music that says, what's happening? And, my notes to composers are always like, this music is a statement and I want it to be a question, or something like that. It's always this sort of like gibberish emotion language. But but in terms of sound design and making a choice like that, I think you have to really trust your material. You have to trust that you don't need to add that layer of feeling on top of it. Sometimes it's like it would be because I want to save that. If
Hmm.
I can build tension and momentum and everything and put you in that experience, like sound design, I think has a way of really immersing you in the reality of something and really making you feel like you're there. And then you save the music until you really want to hit that emotion at the end. It's just so powerful. I really respect the choice to say we're going to hold back on this until it's really time to let loose.
Makes sense. That's interesting. Kind of gets back to that earned. You want those moments to be
Yeah.
earned. Yeah, that's interesting. So, another quick question. Earlier, we were talking about how you changed an edit to push for the comedy,
hmm
and as such, you went back and looked at different takes of actors and so forth. So, I guess my question for you would be for young filmmakers who are going to make their first short film, or maybe go out and do their first feature,
Yeah.
who don't have as much experience. What would you want them to do as a filmmaker to make it easier for you as an editor?
Oh, I love this question. I actually teach a class called Editing for Directors, which
Oh,
is,
wow, that's cool.
yeah, 6 hours
And
of the
where,
exactly this.
where do you teach it?
So I've been doing it, sort of pitching it around. I've taught it at the Gotham and I've taught it at Film North.
That's cool.
Yeah, if anybody's interested, you can go to my website, molliegoldstein.com, reach out to me. But I had some time when I wasn't working and I was like, let me just compile all the things I want directors to know. I've been doing this a long time. I've worked with a lot of first-time directors. So it's like I feel like I've got it. And so I pulled, I've got all kinds of things I talk about, supported with examples from movies, mostly not mine, but a few movies that are mine. But I think the biggest thing comes down to you are going to change your mind. People feel like coverage is just covering your ass or not a confident filmmaker or whatever. It doesn't matter. You're going to change your mind. It's a creative process. The things that you think you know on day one are very different from the things that you know on day 100. So shoot it in such a way that you give yourself options. Then there are interesting and creative and fun and thoughtful ways to do all of that, but cover things from multiple angles, have the actors try things. I'm working with Jamie Babbitt right now on a film called Red, White, and Royal Wedding, and she's an incredible director, so much experience, and she has the actors do an improv run on almost every scene. And very rarely that you take more than two or three things from those, but the two or three things that you get are gold. Because they're really listening and they're really reacting, and you get this real life in the performance. So give yourself choices. Set yourself up to have options later.
And when you say choices, obviously you're talking about coverage, you're talking about letting actors, have some time to try things differently. Are there any other choices that any other kinds of coverage you think would be helpful?
Yeah, I think it's about coverage. It's about options in the camera and it's about options in the performances. Those are the
Gotcha.
things I'm looking for. We also, on Hot Water, we had a couple of scenes where they shot, for the most part, the car was on a process trailer. So they were, filming a car that is, they're not actually driving, basically. And there would be these long stretches where it's like, we got to go around the block. And so the sun is in the right place and whatever. And Ramsey would say, why don't we just run this scene that we're doing tomorrow? And they just did the dialogue from that scene in the car. And there was more than one time where we were like, actually, we don't want to do that scene in that location. We want these two lines to start here in the car. So anything like that where you can have blocks, where you can have building blocks, lets you make more things later.
Well, that makes me think of another question. When do you know that a scene is emotionally done, even though it may not be technically done? I mean, I've seen great films that something will go out of focus or, little things like that will happen, but no one cares because they're lost in the moment. So
Yeah.
how do you know when the scene is, you're done? This works emotionally.
Mhm. I do a lot of feedback screenings, and that's both to hear what people have to say and to sit in the audience with them and feel them reacting to it and see things through their eyes. I really believe that movies are made to communicate things. It's you're communicating a story and a set of feelings and characters to an audience, and so if they're not receiving what you're trying to send, well, that's my job to fix, and so I get a lot of feedback. I really try to sit with it. I really try to be honest with it, and yeah, to listen, to try and understand how people are experiencing this story. That honestly, I get numb, you know. You watch it so many times, all I see are cuts or mistakes or things I want to change pacing wise or technically or whatever. So I need someone to come in and tell me what it feels like to experience this story for the first time.
Right. Makes sense. Well, Molly, before we wrap up, how can people learn more about your career? I know you mentioned your website.
Yes.
Give us that again. And
Yeah.
also, are you like a social media person? Can people follow your career on like Instagram or?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram as Molly Rachel. It's Molly with an IE, so it's Mollie, Rachel. And my website is molliegoldstein.com. And, like I said, I'm really interested in connecting with people and, steering them towards whether it's the ACE internship or a class or just talking. I'm very busy right now, but so it might take me a minute, but I really do like connecting with filmmakers because at the end of the day, people who make stuff are just the best.
That is true. Well, one last question. I'm going to put you on the spot. You said growing up, you and your mom like to watch screwball comedies.
Yep.
Do you have a favorite?
The Lady Eve is one.
Oh, good choice.
Yes, I love that movie, and it is so ahead of its time. Like, you have a woman who's a scam artist, basically, and the end of the film is like, great, good for you. You know, it is. She's smarter than everyone around her. She's just doing what she's got to do, and the pace, the jokes, the rhythm, just the joy of it. It's one of my all-time favorites.
It's amazing how some of those films still hold up today. They're wonderful. Well,
Yeah,
Molly, this has been fun.
it's so fun.
Congratulations on the big award and your two films at
Yeah.
Sundance, and keep us posted. Stay in touch. We could talk about other projects you're working on.
It's great talking to you. I love you're asking really specific questions, really filmmaker, nitty-gritty stuff, and I love it. I love talking about it, and this is really a pleasure.
Awesome. Well, you take care.
You too.
Thank you for listening to the Filmmaker Mixer podcast, a podcast created and hosted by filmmakers Jeff Stolen and Andrew Lamping, and produced by Melody Lopez.
Our theme song was composed by Stephen D. Bennett.
Make sure to follow or subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to us on, and stay tuned for future episodes.